Uh, Hi, everyone. I'm Renata Kestrel of High Winds. I'm a member of the Order of Pelican, and I live in Caid. And I've been a food historian for quite a while. And sorry, you should probably see me, except for now there's a cat in my face. Um, sorry. Um, and so I'm interested in the history of foods, and what really fascinates me is taking a single subject and investigating its history. But I was thinking that we always talk about what they ate, but we never ask ourselves really about why. So that's what sort of generated this class. And and you'll have to excuse me. I had a catastrophic technology failure, and my computer, my brand new MacBook, would not work. So I'm kind of winging this. So if you feel you want to join in, if you have any information that contradicts anything I say, or if you have any other tidbits to add, please feel free. I need all the help I can get. Um, so we all know the five W's, right? Who, what, where, when, and why. Now we're going to take those same five questions, but in a little different order. And we're going to start with where, because the probably one of the major factors in what forms a cuisine, what people eat, is where they are. For instance, if you live in Norway, you're more likely to eat rye bread than someone who lives in a wheat growing area who is more likely to eat wheat bread. And if you're in China, in the South, you're more likely to eat rice. Thank you, Kitty. And in the North, you're more likely to eat wheat. And if you're in America or the Americas, North America, you're probably eating maize, and South America, you're probably eating quinoa or potatoes. So the major factor is where you are. So you have to eat what grows in your area. Well, you don't have to, but you should be eating what grows in your area. So that's our first factor. And we're talking about the beginning of our period when there wasn't a whole lot of traveling around. I mean, the Silk Road existed sort of in that area, but it didn't spread into Europe very far. Most people, raised whatever they needed to survive, whatever they were going to eat, they pretty much raised themselves, or they raised it for their lord, who hopefully took care of them during times of famine. Which brings us to, again, when. Well, it doesn't bring us to when again, but it brings us to when. The next factor is, when were you living, or when was your persona living? In the 12th and 13th centuries, we had, and later on also, we had crusades, and that brought European warriors to the South, and it also brought them to the Middle East, where all sorts of interesting foods grew. And some of those foods came back to the northern areas with them. So already we're getting a little bit of homogenation with the foodways of our period in Europe. And most of my talk is going to be about Europe, because that's what I know the best. But if you know something about other parts of the world, please speak up. So then we have who you were. I mean, well, yeah, I mean, if you were a rich noble or a king, you ate all sorts of imported goodies that your peasants never got a sniff of. Spices and figs and dates and all sorts of things that came on the Silk Road that came from Africa, grains of paradise, long pepper, which actually comes from near Japan, believe it or not. Um, Nutmeg, cinnamon, all the Asian spices. Your king is eating, but you are not. So, did I mention that this class is not going to go 2 hours? Because with me winging it like this, it is not. So I'm sorry if that disappoints anyone.
Oh, don't worry. We'll just chip in extras.
Oh, good. Good. Please do. Please do. I definitely need you to chip in extras. Um, so, um, so yeah, your social status and your economic status as we get later into our period when we have a middle class emerging. Um, you know, England at least had sumptuary laws about who could essentially have what. And so a lot of people were still eating, the food their ancestors ate while the nobility was eating, foods from the New World and even, the spices and things that came. Sorry. This thing is very slippery for some reason. It usually stays up. Um, so they're eating all the goodies from all the trade routes, and they are, they're enjoying those, and you're still eating whatever you could grow and raise in your backyard. Also, who you are, which also goes a little bit to where you were. During our period centered, I am so sorry, guys. During our period, centers of wealth changed around quite a bit. I mean, it started with in Constantinople, which was one of the ends of the Silk Road. And they got all these goodies, and then they sold them to the rest of Europe, and they got very, very wealthy. And until 1353, when the Ottomans conquered them, and the Christian nations of Europe didn't really want to do business with the Ottomans, so they thought about it a different way. And Venice came to the fore as the import capital of Europe, and the Venetians got very, very wealthy. And then Vasco da Gama made it around the Horn of Africa and made it to the Far East and annoyed people enough that they gave him nutmegs and cloves in order to get him to leave. And suddenly Lisbon was the rich city of Europe. And then after that, the Dutch kicked the Portuguese out of most of East Asia and took over and we're getting a little bit out of our period at this point, but then, Amsterdam became the wealthy city of Europe. And then after that, Britannia ruled the wave, and London became the financial hotspot in Europe. So if you were living in any of these cities during times of happy economies, then you were eating all sorts of good stuff. And once the economy moved on, you were eating less of it or none of it at all. So there you have a little bit of who, what, and when. going into what? I mean, most cuisines have some things in common. They have a grain or a bread. They have meat, dairy, vegetables, and fruits. But they're not all the same. I mean, if you live in Scotland, you weren't eating papayas. And you were eating barley and oats, which most of Europe considered fit only for cattle. In Norway, as I mentioned before, not only were you eating very dark rye bread, but you were making your liquor flavored with caraway rather than wormwood or coffee. And again, meat is pretty ubiquitous without, around Europe. If you were not wealthy, you probably weren't eating turkey and maybe not chickens, depending on when you lived, because chickens hadn't always been in Europe. But you were eating ducks and geese and oysters and lobsters because those things lived in your area. If you live near the sea, the lobsters and oysters. But lobsters and oysters were considered peasant food. Salt beef was what the nobles ate because salt was expensive. And nowadays it's all expensive, but oysters and lobster are a lot more expensive than corned beef. For dairy, you had either cows, goats, or sheep, depending on where they could live. Goats and sheep lived better in the south, and cows did better in the north. And of course, breeds came into being that survived better in various places. So, you had cheese and butter and milk if you wanted to drink that. Most adults didn't because it needed to be made into butter or cheese in order to be preserved. So then that's, I guess, a what. And then we get into the acts of God, which means these are things about your food ways that you couldn't control. And the first was location that we've talked about. You had to eat what thrived in your area. And the second thing is, what happened if the season was off and the harvest was bad and the cattle all died? Or there were horrible storms that, blew down your strands of timber, and all sorts of horrible things could happen that would affect your next meal. So, that's something that you didn't necessarily have to consider, but you had to deal with when it happened, just like, earthquakes here in Southern California. Don't necessarily think about them every day, but we have to deal with them when they happen. So then we have the acts of man, which I like to call them. The internal factors that influence food production and consumption. For instance, in England, the landlords started enclosing the fields so they could have crops growing there, when in fact the peasants or the normal folk were used to grazing their sheep and cattle there. But the lords owned the land and they could essentially do what they wanted with it. So, if you couldn't afford to feed your cattle, then you didn't have any beef. Again, things like the plague definitely, it killed millions of people all by itself, but then it killed millions more because there weren't enough people to work the fields and bring in a harvest, or raise the cattle or the sheep or the goats. So you're going into things like that. Then there was, well, I guess this is back to Watt, but food preservation. And I'm sorry this is bouncing around. Like I said, I had this catastrophic technical failure and don't know what the heck I wrote down. Is your ability to preserve your food. That's like if you were rich, you had sugar, that preserved things really, really well. In fact, I have some rose petal jam I made 20 years ago that is still good because sugar impedes bacterial growth. But if you didn't have sugar, you'd have to smoke it or dry it or pickle it. If you had salt, again, not everyone did. So when you think about why people ate what they did, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And it's not just, oh, I like this and I don't like that. People didn't really have that luxury. And for the life of me, I can't remember what all else I prepared for this class. So if anyone has some, if anyone wants to take mercy on me and make some comments or ask some questions, please do. I can't believe that only took 20 minutes. I thought it would take longer. And it would have taken longer if my Mac had cooperated. So does anyone have any questions? Any comments? No? Darn.
I'm sorry, I was snacking. I was like, I have thoughts, but it's very interesting to to consider the why behind it all. I mean, really, it's I don't know. It just in general, it's very interesting topic. So,
oh well. Uh-oh. I've gone somewhere else.
I hear you.
Hold on. There I go. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. And, since I came up with this question, it's like, I look at my own shopping basket and think, why do I eat this? Or why don't I eat that? It's something you really have to consider because you think, oh, I just don't like to eat it. But that's not the whole. I mean, today it kind of is, but in general, it's not the whole story. I mean, for instance, in China, they ate raw ginger because it grew there. But in the West, they ate dried ginger because that's what it was by the time they got it. And the two, well, even though they are in fact the same plant, taste very different, and we use them for different things. Yes, Honor.
One thing that fascinates me, and this is a 50-year-old rabbit hole for me, is the changes in foods that have kept the same name and we don't realize we're not eating the same thing.
That's a very good point. I mean, this morning we had a very good class about pumpkins. And if anyone was in that class, like the word pumpkin, which, today, well, 20 years ago meant round and orange. Nowadays we're a little more varied in our pumpkin selection, but it meant all sorts of things back in our period.
One of my fun examples with pumpkins is that there was a very famous legendary new translation of Apicus that came out in the 1970s. And the front cover was a picture of a baked stuffed pumpkin.
It was a very bad version of it.
Yes, because in Italian, the word for pumpkin is the same as the word for African gourds, which is what Apicus actually was baking and stuffing.
Yes. That's the other thing. that
Mhm.
makes me crazy when you are reading a book, it has both original recipes and redacted recipes from someone who is not really a food historian. And, the recipe will call for the liquor of an orange, which we know means the juice of an orange. But the redactor puts in orange liqueur.
Yeah.
There's such a book. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Shakespeare's Kitchen, now that I think about it. Maybe not. But yeah, things that we're eating that have changed names. For instance, in Northern Europe, Scandinavia, the oil of choice is rapeseed oil, which, if you think of rapes as turnips, is you're thinking turnip seed oil? Well, no. I mean, it's part of the same family, but it's actually canola oil. But we call it canola oil and they call it rapeseed oil, but it's the same thing.
And we call it canola oil for advertising purposes because it was grown in
Exactly.
such massive amounts in Canada. And they didn't want the word rape on a package being sold in the United States.
That's right.
But one of my favorites in that field is that we know that they ate beans in medieval Europe. And over my 53 almost years in the SCA, I can't tell you how many feasts I've been served beans at. But there were 300 varieties of European broad beans. Fava is the last survivor of them.
Yeah.
All the rest were thrown away because New World beans are more resistant to European bean diseases. But they taste nothing like each other.
Nope.
So every bean dish served in the SCA, unless it's Fava's, it tastes nothing like it did in our period.
Well, I mean, when you
Talina
think
was
about
saying early, Talina was saying earlier today that she was gifted with more than a dozen different varieties of fava beans that
it, really,
taste differently because she lives in an agricultural area and somebody's doing a study on the different fava varieties.
Mm-hmm.
that's very
And
cool. But again, she's eating broad beans that we can't get anywhere else because she's lucky to live in that area.
Yeah, I believe it was
the
through Chico
problem,
State.
Yes.
and the other problem with Favas, of course, is that I forget what percentage, but a significant population, a percentage of the Italian and southern Spain and northern Africa population has a deadly allergy to fava beans called favitis. So we simply don't
Really?
serve them in the SCA because we're scared of that.
Huh. Is that something that came to them genetically or?
Yes, yes. It's genetic. If you live in those parts of the world, you have a one in however many, I forget the number, chance of having the tendency to favitis. And whether you develop it or not depends on weird stuff. I'm sorry, I
Huh.
read the article in 1979. It's a little
Hey,
lost in
you
my brain.
remember it. That's better than I do half the time.
But another example of that is peas. I also cannot count the number of peas porridges I've had, except they were all based on modern sweet peas.
Yep.
The pea of the Middle Ages was what is now called the gray field pea. And you combine that with bread, you've got the same protein value as steak. But it did not taste like modern peas, and cooked porridge made from it is brown or gray.
Yep. That's a very common mistake, which is too bad because I love green peas, but I really don't like field peas. I was traumatized by a vat of split pea soup on my very first SCA banquet.
And it was field peas?
It was split peas,
Oh,
which
yeah.
are field pea. And I've never
No.
really been able to look dried peas in the face again.
Well, even split peas are a modern variety. They are not the period variety at all.
Right. I
The
probably
gray field
actually
pea is
like
now only grown for animal fodder.
an heirloom variety, but it's, not something I'm going to go out of my way to try. I mean, if it's served to me at a banquet, I would taste it at least.
Yeah.
Split
You
pea.
can buy some period varieties to grow if you have garden space. I've grown Carlin peas, which are a medieval variety.
Cool.
So talk to Eleanor. She'll tell you all of the great places to get seeds for all kinds of cool medieval vegetables.
That's true.
Well, first I have to find Eleanor, but that's beside the point.
I mean, usually libraries have, I mean, at least in our area, we do, there's like a library of seeds that you can go and get seeds through, and all different kinds of, I mean, it's pretty wide variety.
Well, I doubt they're going to have lupini beans, which is the other European bean, and is
Probably.
poisonous.
Probably
Well,
not.
and yeah, I mean, if you're talking about the beans that come from lupins,
Yes.
they only very marginally nutritious, and if they're not cooked right, they are very toxic.
Yep.
What the poor were eating, according to Monty Python, going off in search of some lupins.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Sicilian lupin is relatively higher in protein than the others, and it's still grown for human food. But it's one of the more toxic ones. You boil it in 3 changes of water and then soak it overnight and then do that again.
Yeah.
I wonder if the Instant Pot, like when it comes to kidney beans, you're cooking kidney beans that you're not supposed to Instant Pot it, but I wonder if Instant Potting it might help break that down faster.
I don't know. That would be worth trying to find out about.
Yeah.
By some method other than taste testing, of course.
Because I mean, that's one of the great things about making beans in an Instant Pot is that like it breaks it down to the, so that it's less gassy in theory. And I just would wonder if that would, I don't know. I'm just curious about that.
I wonder if anyone's made that, I mean, experimented with that. I mean, it's not, at least in America, it's not a bean we eat very often. I'm just wondering if maybe some scientist in Sicily has tried it out to see if it's a faster method than the old-fashioned way.
I'd love to know.
Me too. I'm
The
always
same
interested
thing has
in that
happened
sort
to
of
the
thing.
animals, actually. Medieval goats, there are surviving breeds that have not changed since the Middle Ages. And if you taste them compared to modern meat goats, the taste is not the same.
No.
Not even close.
Or eggs, when our medieval recipes talk about eggs, they're not talking about the extra larges that we get.
Nope.
And you have to remind people in our day and age that use the medium eggs, not the large ones.
Yep. And if it's late spring, like May, most of the eggs you're going to have are going to be peewees or pullets, not even mediums.
Yep. So, as we know, medieval food is endlessly interesting.
Oh yeah, there's some fun byways though. I mean, like they put roses in their porridge.
Rose petals are delicious. If you can
I
get
don't
them
think you're
without
likely to find.
chemicals and systemic fertilizer.
Yeah.
Which I actually did one year when a friend of mine did not treat her roses, and I grabbed her and said, "Can I have the petals?" I made rose syrup and rose petal jam, some of which, as I said, I still have.
Mm. And the apple varieties?
Oh, don't get me started on the apple varieties.
Yeah.
I mean, from something the size of a cherry in Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan to the ones we have today is just incredible.
They had an apple called gillyflower in
Oh, really?
1400s France that it bears fruit the 1st of August.
Really?
It was a juice apple. It's it's perfect. It's very, very mushy. I mean, the second it's ripe, it's already so soft it goes squish, but it makes fantastic juice. And to be able to get apple
Spicy
juice the 1st of
gillyflower?
August when you haven't had any since last March.
Does it taste spicy like a gillyflower does?
Well, a little. It has an odor similar to the spiciness of a gillyflower, is the main thing. But I've always wished I could figure out a way to talk them into letting me plant some gillyflower trees at Penzic. So people at Penzic could,
Oh, that would be so cool. You'd have fresh pressed cider right on site.
yep, and from a medieval variety.
Yeah.
Another one there's one called the Rambo, Rambeaux, which is now in America as Rambo, but
Of course.
that is a late Tudor variety.
It's amazing. So has it, well, I shouldn't, how do I word this? I mean, obviously it's not been commercially grown all this time, but someone found it growing in someone's backyard.
Oh no, it was commercially grown, just by very small patches in very small farms. God bless the Italians. My great grandfather grew it, and his great great grandfather grew it, and his great 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 grandfather grew it, so I'm growing it. There's an apple that in America is called the lady apple. It's
Yes.
about the size of a ping pong ball or a little larger, maybe a tangerine size, but it was grown commercially in ancient Rome before the Caesars. And in Italy, they just kept growing it. And it was a commercial apple. They just never bothered stopping.
Huh. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Every couple of years, Whole Foods sells it.
Oh, thank you, Jacqueline.
And
I
recently,
wish I had more information for you guys. I'm racking my brains, but after a night of arguing with a computer, I don't have very many left.
Yeah. Recently, they have started growing in the US again the Manteca pig, which is a late Renaissance lard pig.
So what is it, an apple?
No, it's a pig, a variety of,
the pig,
pig.
yes.
And its taste is so different from modern pigs that you could be forgiven easily for thinking it could not be the same species. The thing with the Manteca pig is that more than half their weight is lard.
I was going to say, lard pigs have not been raised on a large commercial scale for a very long time because lard has been so unhealthy for us.
Except in Russia, where they don't care.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about the US, but yeah. There are countries where they don't care. But yeah, I've seen pictures from the 17th century, paintings of lard pigs. They went into this phase where they like to paint pictures of animals, domestic pets, livestock, whatever. And you see these pictures of these pigs, and they're like, I don't know how to describe them. There's roll upon roll of fat.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can tell just by looking at them that is not meat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's good. They need to grow lard pigs again or raise lard pigs again.
There's actually a medieval pig that grows spinnable wool.
No way.
Yes way. It's called the woolly pig, oddly enough.
I did not know that. That is great. I shall have to look it up.
Yeah. Another
It's like,
factor
"Oh,
in
I need
recipes.
your pig's wool socks, dear."
It's
Another
Hungarian, I
factor in
believe.
recipe. What?
It's a Hungarian pig, I believe. I'm
Oh,
I'm remembering from umpteen thousand years ago that I read about them, but I was intrigued and wanted to immediately become rich so I could import some, get their wool.
yeah. Now, mind, it's not as good wool as as sheep has, and it's got a different cellular structure, so it's not spun quite the same as a sheep wool, but it's still wool.
That would be part of the interest, is the difference.
I
Figure
shall
out what
have to
it's good
ask
for.
my fiber friends about that.
Oh, you want to really hurt your five of friends, Grains? Ask them about tog and tel,
What
TOG
is,
and TEL.
what is it?
It's the two different kinds of wool that the ancestral sheep breeds produced.
Oh, that's right.
Icelandic
They might
Icelandic sheep
actually
still
know
do.
that. I mean, they're SCA, but I don't know if they know about pig's wool.
Yeah. I'm desperately hoping that we're going to figure out a way to revive the Salish wool dog. It's a Northwest US and Canada native dog species. From before Westerners came to this continent, they had bred a species of dog that produced a wool.
Huh. That's very interesting.
Just one little problem. It smelled like dog.
I imagine, yeah, you
Details,
get
petty
it wet in the
details.
snow and you'd smell like a wet dog.
Then again, have you ever smelled a wet sheep? I mean, seriously here.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Sheep can
But
smell nasty.
but if you really
I'm used
want
to
a
it.
trip down memory lane and to learn a lot more about the Middle Ages than you thought you needed to know, go to the uh, nature the Rare Breeds Conservancy. Um,
Oh,
it's
yeah?
a it's an organization who is trying to protect varieties of domesticated animals that are dying out.
Yeah.
And many of the ones that are dying out are the ones that go back to our period.
That's right.
Like the dumpy chicken, one of the great medieval chickens, is gone forever because they couldn't be bred up to produce as many eggs as a leghorn. But the thing
Well,
with dumpies was that they are far lower to the ground than most other varieties of chickens, so it's very hard for predatory birds to catch them. And they were fantastic mothers.
yeah, this is off topic, but I've been watching this Facebook page where a chicken has adopted an orphan kitten.
Mm.
And he sleeps under her wing every night, and he brings her chicks back to her in his mouth. It's so cute.
Yeah.
Here's what you should read your culinary books more often. I just found a bookmark that has been missing for years.
Ah.
It was in this book that I don't even remember reading. Well, there are. I don't know what's wrong with this thing today. I do have a couple of book selections for you if you're interested in this topic, more than I can, tell you off the top of my head. And again, I do apologize for that. There are two that I cannot recommend highly enough. The first one is Ken Abella's Eating Right in the Renaissance. I don't know if this is backwards or not.
Well, we can read
It
it.
might be.
Yeah, we can read it.
But since my computer crashed, I don't have my bibliography here, but I know that this is the book that I get most of my information out of. And the other one is from a really, really interesting lady that I have actually had the pleasure of meeting. It's called Cuisine and Culture, A History of Food and People. Oop. And again, I don't know if it's backwards or not.
No.
No, we can read it.
She is really, really interesting and has the best recipe for soda bread I've ever eaten. So does anyone else have any comments or questions or anything we can talk about for the next few minutes? So my class isn't like a total washout.
Well,
Yeah,
if you want me to, I can rant on for hours about the misconceptions about food availability at different ranks in period. I used to teach a class called Scabominations.
I would have liked to take that class.
yeah.
I may teach it again, but I can post a link to a Quora answer that contains some of that information. If you think anybody would be interested in reading it.
I
Yes,
would.
absolutely.
Okay. Come on. There we go. Chat.
I'll go ahead and stop the recording though. Just I think at this
Yeah,
point.
that's fine, Anna. Thank you.
Welcome.